This first panel today, I said we're going to start at the 30,000 foot level, and I kind of set the stage earlier. We have 4 people on the panel, and I'll introduce them as they come up here, but they do really represent kind of a national view of both the regulatory and the industry, and then I'll try to bring up the rear talking from the public's perspective a little bit. One of the things that came out of these incidents, tragedies, over the last 21 months was a whole series, I think, but I've lost track, is there's been 15 congressional hearings since this all started. So not only has the electorate taken a notice and certainly affected communities taken a notice, Congress took a huge notice too, and it was kind of the stars lined up when it came to Congress because last year, maybe it was the year before actually, every 4 years the National Pipeline Safety Program has to be reauthorized by Congress. So every 4 years Congress takes a look at pipeline safety around the country, and since Congress ultimately is who sets the rules, that's their opportunity to look at setting new rules and tweaking the budgets and those types of things. Because of all the tragedies that happened all over the country, Congress took more of an interest than they ever have, I think, before, and had 15 hearings. I think the Pipeline Safety Trust was invited to be at 10 of them. So, and I don't know if anybody's ever testified to Congress. It's a very strange process because they usually call you up about 8 days before they want you to be there and tell you you're invited and tell you what you're supposed to say, and then they want your testimony 2 days after that. And being invited 10 times was both a blessing and a curse in many ways. I just want to start out with a very short clip from one of those hearings where a senator from California pretty much spelled out what a lot of people were saying at these hearings.
This tragedy, I believe, shows the heavy toll in death and destruction when high-pressure natural gas pipelines fail. And this risk, candidly, is unacceptably high. So last week, I joined with my colleague, a distinguished member of this subcommittee, Senator Boxer, to introduce the Strengthening Pipeline Safety and Enforcement Act. This bill strengthens and expands legislation proposed by U.S. Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood. Here's what the legislation does. First, it doubles the number of pipeline safety inspectors from the current number of 100, responsible for 217,000 miles of interstate pipeline, to 200. Each inspector is responsible for over 2,000 miles of pipeline. That's the distance from San Francisco to Chicago. The NTSB recently recommended, and I quote, "Inspectors must establish an aggressive oversight program that thoroughly examines each operator's decision-making process. Doubling the number of inspectors will make this possible." Secondly, the bill requires deployment of electronic valves capable of automatically shutting off gas in a fire or other emergency. Manually operated valves must be located, accessed, and physically turned off in an emergency. Automatic valves could dramatically reduce damage caused by a pipeline breach. Thirdly, the bill mandates inspections by what are called smart pigs. We call this an electronic robot that goes through the pipe, or the use of an inspection method certified by the Secretary of Transportation as equally effective at finding corrosion. I've been told it isn't possible to use smart pigs everywhere, but there can be an equally efficient method as approved by the Secretary. Accident statistics over the past decade identify corrosion as the leading cause of all reported pipeline accidents. Fourth, it would prohibit natural gas pipelines from operating at high pressure if they cannot be inspected using the most effective inspection technology. This is important. This was a 30-inch pipeline operating at well over 300 psi. There was a lot of gas coming through this pipeline. It was 60 years old. So I think this precautionary approach to pipeline operations assures that they are more likely to have undetected problems, to not have undetected problems operating at risk. Finally, it prioritizes old pipelines in seismic areas for the highest level of safety oversight. Today, regulators consider a pipeline's proximity to homes and buildings. Other risk factors are not a defined consideration, although pipe age and seismicity have a clear impact on the risk of a catastrophic incident. And it directs the Department of Transportation to set standards for natural gas leak detection equipment and methods. Today, there are no uniform standards how to detect leaks. I think that's a big problem throughout the United States. And finally, we adopt a number of common sense provisions proposed by Secretary LaHood to improve pipeline safety. These include increasing civil penalties, expanding data collection, closing jurisdictional loopholes, and requiring consideration of a firm's safety record when considering its request for regulatory waivers. I think this is a basic bill. Senator Boxer and I submit it to you and urge, it's a work in progress. We don't pretend to know all the answers. These seem to us to be the common sense answers. We know what state-of-the-art pipeline inspection is. We simply don't have it, and I think we need to have it.